We are methodical, but recognizing that systems are in place that may not always allow us to be in the same spaces and places where we want to be. And so, um, yeah, I'm all those things.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yes. So, in your positions that you've had throughout your career span, even in your stance being a student at HBCU and undergrad and
Mhm.
going off to Euler and going off to the School of Law and for UALR, how would you truly define resilience?
So, for me, resilience is the ability to adapt, to be flexible, to bounce back, to be thoughtful about bending but not breaking, thoughtful of the scripture that talks about being pressed on every hand, but yet we are not destroyed. And so resilience is one that when you see adversity, when you experience adversity, um, you don't allow it to define who you are or to dictate where you have to go.
Yes, thank you. I like that. So it's glad you say that because you said a key word. It doesn't dictate or define where you're going. So we have a lot of students on this call today. And so could you just share a challenging time where you were in college and how you overcame that challenge?
So you mentioned earlier that I graduated with my undergraduate degree from the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. And so besides not winning Miss UAPB in 1999, I will not be, you know, still, petty and bitter about that. I've gotten over that in my years, but seriously, one of the things is that I was a first generation college student. So my
Okay.
mother had not gone to college, and while I had always been a really good student in high school and junior high school, I struggled a bit when I went to college because I was just not so accustomed to many of the concepts I was learning at that time and needing to balance my time, wanting to fit in, and just really recognizing where my place and space was or where
Mhm.
my place and spaces were. And so I just it was difficult seeing individuals from different socioeconomic statuses and different family backgrounds from myself. And I was not accustomed to that type of atmosphere. And so it was a struggle initially finding myself and naming the things that I wanted to do. I initially majored in political science because I'd always had a dream of going to law school. And one day my aunt asked me, she said, "Well, Tamika, if you don't go to law school, what will you do
Mhm.
immediately after college?" And I had no idea. I just knew the two things that I wanted, law and politics. And so I switched my major from political science to English because I thought, well, maybe I could always just teach in English. But I recognized later on that I needed the communication skills, both verbal and written skills, in order to do a lot of the work that I'm doing now. And so I'm glad that I went ahead and majored in English. But the way I overcame that was just really being clear about who I am early on and seeking guidance at an early age of people to help me move along the way. I watched individuals, I watched leaders that I admired, and I took away various aspects of their leadership skills even early on to kind of determine where I needed to be.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. So, um, throughout your, I'm sure you had like a plethora of, I'm sure you've experienced a lot of emotions,
Mhm.
challenges throughout your experience working through public policy, community development, even serving as the executive director of social justice at my alumni, Philander Smith College.
Ah.
So, so I wanted to know, and even your role now, take us through some of the different roles that you've had in your career and how being resilient was important to your success.
So I started my career early on. I was 21 years old, fresh out of college when I started my career in the office of US Senator Blanche Lincoln. And so I worked in her office for nearly 11 years. And working in her office, I think, was one of the most important positions that I had. And I say that because it provided such a wonderful foundation for the work that I am doing right now and all of the jobs in all of my career choices in between. And so I worked for a woman who was, at the time, the youngest woman elected to the United States Congress. And then later, she became the second woman from Arkansas. Elected to the United States Senate, and she was still a relatively young woman. And a couple of things she taught me and I observed just by working with her was that she taught me the power of an ask. And so she would always say, the worst thing they can tell you is no, but they can't tell you that if you don't ask. And so I determined at a very early age, in my early time in her office, I would just ask for things I wanted, as well as those things that I wanted to know. And so, starting out at that age and not being around politics, I was promoted very early in my career. So within 6 months of starting in her office as an office assistant, I moved to the Central Arkansas Regional Rep, and I was 22 years old, and I covered 9 counties in the state, primarily Central Arkansas and Jefferson County, where I went to college. So I still had some connections there. But what I saw was just this I saw the possibilities, but I also saw all the barriers that tend to stop us from getting what we wanted. Oftentimes, I was the only woman in the room, the only Black person in the room, the youngest person in the room, and my ability and my skills were often challenged by those individuals. And so I saw myself shrinking a lot and not moving forward in the way that I needed to move forward to stand out. And so there were times when I thought I made the worst decision of all, or there were times when I didn't think that I could actually move on and thought that there were too many things or too many barriers in my way and that I should just give up. But there was something in me that just kept saying, just keep moving, right? And if you just keep moving, just learn some more, just understand more. And I recognized that meritocracy was a farce, that no matter how smart I was, how great I was, how good I thought I was, mediocrity tended to get into the way. So my always moving forward on my merits just was not was one of the things I realized. And so there were times that I was hopeless, but I knew that there was something more. And so I just stuck at it and I grew a database, a great network of individuals who were willing to help me. I learned the system of the federal government. I was able to meet a lot of women who were willing to mentor me in this space and help me to define my voice and to define my way of work. And so in community outreach, they helped me along the way, as well as just being in leadership programs and nurturing me. And so those were the ways I think that I was able to get over it. But the resilience, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later on, like what are the characteristics of resilience? I was connected to a group of people who were willing to see me and wanting to see me move forward. And so I developed a way of thinking about leadership through three things: through clarity. I want to be sure that things are very clear so that there are not any unexpected or unrealistic expectations. Courage, the courage to be able to speak up and move forward, and conviction. And I am moved by my faith. My faith guides every single decision that I have. And if it's not right, most likely I won't do it. And so the resilience for me came out in those three words.
Thank you for sharing. That was deep. And it, I was thinking about other questions that I wanted to ask after that, but you really hit on some really important things. And I need to, my spirit is telling me to slip this question in here really quick. So, because I know there are a lot of young women on the call who are college students, and they're trying to find their way through it. And as a woman of color, being in the room with people that don't look like you,
Mhm.
that may not that may look at you in a particular way, or just any situation, how did you make your voice heard? I know you use those three leadership characteristics, but
Mhm.
what other skills or maybe characteristics that you kind of embody to say, look, I'm here, I'm present?
Preparation was key for me. So I made sure that I always prepared and researched just about everything. And I didn't do surface research. I checked and double checked. And that's why I say I'm a recovering perfectionist, right? Because that perfectionism forced me to limits that I think were unhealthy of always overdoing and thinking that I needed to be the best to overcome some of the adversities. But the one thing I think that maintained its presence for me was just making sure I was prepared, always being prepared. I would review information prior to a meeting, I would research information prior to a meeting. I would be prepared for questions that would come my way. And even if I did not know the answer, I would either ask beforehand or just be very transparent and say, I do not know. But courage was the budding thing for me, and I practice it, right? So courage is not something that you get this one time and it just sustains you forever. It is something that you practice every single day. Like a medical doctor will practice medicine, and an attorney will practice law because they do not know all the nuances that they may face at any given time. And so it is the practice. So I practice courage, and the courage continues to be serving as a lifelong learner and being able to face things that I don't readily know, but I'm willing to move through and go through it. So, preparation, research, courage, admitting when you don't know something, and being okay with learning something new.
Thank you so much for sharing that and allowing me to just slip that one in. Thank you. So, what do you think is key to becoming more resilient?
So, one thing I do want to say is that resilience doesn't mean that you won't have adversity and that you will not become emotional at times or feel like you want to give up. So, resilience is not one where you are just stoic and you have no emotion. So, I want to make sure that that is out of the way. But a lot of things, in doing some of the research and thinking about psychology, resilient people are optimistic individuals because they look at a situation and they are like, well, this cannot be all that it is for me to go through. And so they look past and recognize that there is something on the other side. I think resilient people are also self aware or self reflective, right? So I think about my moves and my thoughts, and I know when I've wronged someone and I apologize about that if my tone is off, or even if I was frustrated and I just said something that was off, I apologize about that. So I'm usually very reflective. And I think resilient people are reflective. They are also connected in a way that they surround themselves with other individuals who can help build them and give them constructive criticism and constructive feedback, and not lost in their own echo chamber. And so resilient people also have this this locus of control, and most times it is an internal locus of control of what I can control, and the external things do not control me, which is what lends or leans into the hopefulness and the optimism, because you know that you have the power to some extent to move past trials and to push yourself through.
Thank you for sharing. Yes. So, as we all know, this is Women's History Month.
Mhm.
And so, first of all, we would like to really congratulate you for being selected as Women of the Year in Business by
Oh,
the Women's
yeah.
Foundation of Arkansas. Now,
Yay!
tell them they need to make sure they put your picture right on the website,
Ah,
nobody
yeah.
else's.
I love the Women's Foundation. I've been volunteering
Yes,
in some form or fashion for several years, so I'm
yes.
very
So,
honored for that.
thank you. So, speak to the importance of Women's History Month. And who are some of the women that have influenced or that have been most influential in your life and why?
So, Women's History Month, as you stated earlier, is extremely important. It gives us the opportunity to recognize the contributions and achievements of women all over our country who have contributed greatly to our quality of life. And it also gives us an opportunity to reflect on some of the changes that we've made individually that have contributed to others' way of life. And so, first and foremost, one of the most influential women in my life is my mother. She,
Mhm.
I look just like my mother. At times, I find myself fussing at my children and sounding just like my mother, and I have to catch myself and say, "Oh Lord, is that Joyce coming out?" But so, my mother is the most influential for a couple of things. I think she was the one who introduced me to resilience. She was a single parent. My parents were married, but then got a divorce when I was early, and so she. Was a divorced woman who recognized that she just had to do what she needed to do to take care of her children. When I was a sophomore in college, my mother decided to go back to school, well, go to college, and she finished her college career at Philander Smith College within 4 years. So she did the 4 year track and she became a member of my beloved sorority. She is a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and I was able to pin my mother
Oh,
and I tried to get her to call me big sister, but that was not going to work out. So she, no, ma'am. Okay. So, and she then later went to get her master's degree. And she did this all while working two jobs and still making sure that she was able to provide. And so, recognizing what that meant and being able to see that as a young adult just demonstrated to me what it took to just keep moving forward. And so, she was able to do that. And I'm, quite proud of her for doing that. A lot of other women surrounded me and kept me. So, my high school principal, Dr. Linda Watson, when I wanted to go to the leadership forum on law and the Constitution in the 11th grade, she raised money among our teachers to help me have spending money in order to go. Um, and money for me to travel and see DC for the first time. And it was in Washington, DC, and on the steps of the United States Supreme Court, it solidified for me that I was going to go to law school at some point and that I was
mhm,
going to dedicate my life to public service. And so, if it had not been for Dr. Watson, I wouldn't have had that opportunity to really be a part of what that looked like. And of course, Blanche Lincoln, just
mhm,
having worked beside her for so many years and still staying in contact with her and being able to see in real time what it meant or what it means to be the only woman in spaces, but to carry yourself with the confidence and the courage and moving forward in a way that where you command a space.
mhm. Think it froze up. Did it freeze? Okay. Hopefully she'll rejoin us in a
Yes, I think it froze up.
second. Let's see. I don't know. Think we lost her, guys. 1 second. Hopefully she'll log back in. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna give it a moment. Hopefully she'll log back in, but if you can just have those questions ready, because I'm sure we all have some questions to ask, and hopefully we're gonna try to get her back in just a second.
She's coming back in now.
Right.
So I said, I guess I was talking too long and
No,
talking too much, and my compute something just went wrong. So, but anywho, I was ending with Renee Bullock, who taught me community outreach and how to establish a name for myself and to do the work that was necessary in order to be a servant leader. And so those are the women who have surrounded me. And of course, I have a good circle group of girlfriends and Vivian Flowers, Marty North, and Marquita Little. And they tell me in probably not so nice ways when I'm wrong or when I need to redo something. So I'll just leave it at that.
but thank you so much for sharing, having allowing us in today. It was really appreciative. I love that you are a sorority member, although my blood is pink and green.
Mm-mm.
But it's
Bless your heart, child. Bless your heart.
run speaking green, but again, we do appreciate you so much. So we're gonna open the floor for a couple of questions. I know
Okay.
there is one question in the chat, so I guess what I'll do is I'll address this question, and if anyone else has questions, you can raise your hand or just blurt it out or drop it in the chat. But we're gonna do about 15 minutes. So the first question in the chat says, "How can faculty and staff assist scholars in combating imposter syndrome?" Did she freeze up again? Oh Lord.
Looked like she froze up again. So
I'm gonna give it maybe 3 more minutes, but yeah.
I'm back. I'm back.
Okay.
I don't know
All right.
what's happening to the water company's internet. I'm gonna have to talk to the people about this.
So I don't know if you heard
using
that
it again.
question, but it was, how can faculty and staff assist scholars in combating imposter syndrome?
Uh-oh. Think it's froze again.
Oh Lord. I guess we'll just uh, help us, Lord. Yes. I guess we'll just wait to see. Hopefully she'll come back in about a couple more minutes.
I'm back. I'm not sure what's
Okay.
happening with my internet. We're gonna get it together. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. We're ready now. All right. Let's see. How can faculty and staff assist scholars in combating imposter syndrome?
So I read an article not too long ago in the Harvard Business Review, and it said to stop telling women that they have imposter syndrome
Mm,
because we often think of imposter syndrome as we are fraudulent and we don't know enough to be in the spaces and places that we are. But I believe that when we encounter, and I know, so it's not what I believe, it's what I know. when we encounter anything new, we may not know how to deal with it. And
Mhm.
so just about everybody feels like an imposter. And we assign these words and they just continue to come back and back. And then we repeat it to other people. So I'm getting to the point, and this is like a very, very recent point after I read this article, that I'm not believing in the imposter syndrome anymore. I am who I am until I'm not. And what I don't know, I will ask. And what I know, I do know. And so that type of confidence and clarity is going to allow you to enter into spaces and say, this is what I know, and this is what I don't know. And what I don't know, will you help to educate me? And just be done with it. We're not imposters. Now, there are people who are imposters, but that means that they are intentionally faking to be in a space. If you
Mhm.
are genuinely, actively thinking about concepts and different things to help you grow, it is impossible for you to know everything at once,
Mhm.
and you shouldn't.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And yeah, what you said is powerful. That's what we were waiting on. Thank you so much. So the next question comes from Christy Carter. I'd love to ask Miss Edwards to elaborate on mediocrity as a farce and what that means in an everyday context for colorful women.
And I knew better than to say a word and not define it immediately afterwards. So thank you, Dr. Carter, for checking me right there in Old Conway. Thank you for checking me. So meritocracy is the idea that you can get what you need just based on merits. And so, and I'm always reading these little one-off articles, but there was an article not too long ago talking about, and I think it was in the Atlantic, about meritocracy and how Black people and people of color are often told that if you get the degree, you get the experience, you get this, you get that, you get this, all those things based on merit, then you will have the American dream. But that is not true. We know that that's not true when we think about systemic racism, when we think about various oppressive institutions. That's not true. And so when we get in our mind that we're going to have this equal and equitable access to the American dream, it messes with you mentally. And so when I mean that meritocracy is a farce, it's simply not true, because we see oftentimes when we push for our excellence, mediocrity is often rewarded. And so there is not a way in this day and age where we just can depend on merit to move by. There are other factors. And when we recognize that, then we won't be so much of a victim to striving for meritocracy. We'll know what levers need to be pulled and how we need to work throughout systems.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. The next question comes from Richard Moss. What advice can you give to male colleagues who want to support women in the workplace and community? What can we do to be advocates?
First, Dr. Moss, don't be sending those long questions to me. I see his picture right on down there. No, Dr. Moss is a friend, so that's the only reason why I said that. So don't y'all look shocked. But what I would tell my male colleagues is that silence is complicity. You are complicit when you are silent in workplaces and spaces and see that women are being mistreated. Your silence makes it okay. And how do male colleagues support us in that space? See, I was too busy trying to joke with them that I didn't catch the last part of the question. So will you repeat the question for me?
And what can we do to be advocates?
Oh, speak up. So, even when we're not in the room, so often, it would be uncomfortable if you are in the room and speaking up, because then it shines a light and then it further victimizes individuals. And so, when we are not in the room, speak up on our behalf, be our advocate in a way that you would advocate for anything else. People ask me, even in this DEI space and racial justice space, well, how do we reach out to Black people? How do we reach out to other people of color? And my question to them is, how do you reach out to everybody else? It
Yeah.
is not that we are this virus or something that's deadly where we h- don't feel the same things that other people feel. So how do you make friends anywhere else? How do you speak out for other people anywhere else? And it's the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If you recognize that something is being wrong, speak up.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, Dr. Sharice Jones Branch says, how do you combat the angry Black woman stereotype?
So, I remember a time when I am very, if you can tell by my voice, I'm very straightforward, but I do have a, I love to laugh, and I think, laughter is good for the soul, and I enjoy having fun. But I'm clear, very clear and transparent, and
Mhm.
sometimes borderline to clear where it feels offensive. And so I had an instance when a former colleague said that she was afraid of me.
Mm,
And so I thought to myself, oh Lord, what have I done to make one afraid of me? But
mhm,
I remembered was history. And that is the way in which we weaponize, um, um, where white women would often weaponize their whiteness in spaces that would harm Black people. And so I recalled history to her to help her understand what that word meant, and being afraid of someone, um, and characterizing a Black woman as angry. What does that mean? And whether the actions that they are defining me with, do those things fit with the definition that they read? And so I don't get angry, I educate. And through education, you help individuals understand the terms that they use, and that words matter, and that words can be
mhm.
harmful. We were taught sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Words will hurt you mentally and emotionally, and those things can bother you physically. And so, my way to combat it is just to educate people on what that means and how that connects to race.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. So I'm looking at the clock and I don't want to, I know other people have classes and stuff, but we're good. So does anyone have any additional questions they would like to ask Smith Edwards? Give it a space. Yes, we have one. Thank you. Miss Beverly Wheeler states, what does courage look like? So often it is called aggression instead of courage. Could you
Mm,
speak to not allowing external systems from defining your courage?
yes. So I am consistent, and my consistency connects with my courage. And so when things are wrong, I speak up. And so, what does courage operationalized look like? So, what does it mean in our day to day practices? It means speaking up when things are wrong, but it also means recognizing when you have to speak up. So we will burn ourselves out by being upset and speaking out on every single thing. I recognize that. And so I speak out and speak up when it matters to what my responsibilities are as a mother, as a woman, as a person who is moving forward racial justice and social justice. I recognize how is that impacting the overall goals, but I speak up and speak for courage in things that are aligned with my values and that are true to me. There are some things that we simply cannot be quiet and be silent on, and it would not be in our best interest to stay quiet. Now, how do we do that in a way that doesn't become so emotional? We stick to the principles and never attack the people. Like, I stick with the principle. Like, what did we say we were here to do? And if we are not doing that, then what are we doing? So I stick with the principles. I don't really try to get into the personality or attack people at a level. If I stay with what we said we're going to do, then and we'll be very clear. If you really don't intend to do that, then let's not talk about it. But if you intend to do it, let's move forward.
Thank you so much. I love that because I always teach about being intentional.
Hmm.
Being intentional, do what you say you're going to do. So thank
That's
you for
right.
sharing that.
That's right.
So I know we have about 5 more minutes, and I just want to give you the floor for any closing remarks that you have. We would like to thank you so much for being in this space and allowing us the opportunity to share this space with you. So thank you.
So I just want to say thank you for inviting me into the space. I have enjoyed my time, and even through the glitches, we got right back on track, right? And so I think it's really important to know ourselves. And when I say know ourselves, recognize what triggers you, recognize what irritates you, and also recognize that we are not perfect. Like perfection, you'll never reach it. And so stop trying to be perfect, strive for excellence. And excellence in what that means to you, it's really important to define what values you hold, what your mission statement is in life, and that courage is something you practice every single day. So you gin up for it. And after you do it a couple of times, you're just like, oh, I can ride this bike on home. So be who you are and be okay with that. And I'm not going to pull out my jackleg evangelist ways, but the Bible does talk about that we are one body in many parts. And in saying that, I recognize that that the fingers cannot do what the toes do and vice versa. I cannot do somebody else's purpose. I can only do mine. And I am clear and fine with my purpose. Even though I don't know exactly what the end will be in my purpose, I recognize the pathway I need to go with my purpose. And so my mother always told me just do what's right and you don't have to worry about anything else. And what is right for me, right, is speaking up when I need to speak up, right, is being having integrity and character when no one else is looking. Right is being exactly who I am, where I am, and when I'm supposed to be. And I am fine with that. And you should be too.
Ooh, thank you so much. Thank you. We caught that word today. So we we appreciate you so much. And I'm sure everyone, if they could just have the opportunity to unmute and give you a hand clap, they would, but you can see it in the chat. There are so many things going on. But we just want to say thank you so much. We really appreciate you.
Virtual hug, everybody.
Virtual hugs. Virtual hugs. Even though it's not pink and green, you're still cool with me.
I'm not thinking about you on that one. Now. I ain't thinking about you. And I saw some of my sorors chime in now. I ain't thinking about you about that.
We appreciate you so much. And we
You're so
really hope that you have a wonderful weekend and a blessed career. And we are here. We want you to come back,
I will come
talk
back.
to us, please. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. And y'all have a great rest of the summit.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Right, y'all. I would like to give a thanks to Professor Sanders and Attorney Edwards for those words about resilience. They are definitely what we needed to hear. And I just want to say I personally appreciated the sermon because, you know me, I love to church anything. So I just want to thank Attorney Edwards for that good word. Now we're going to take about a 5 to 10 minute break. So feel free to grab a snack, lunch, whatever you need to do during this time, feel free to do so. And we will be back.
All right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Our next student panel will be moderated by Hendrix alum, Dr. Valencia Moses. So I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Moses.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Glad to be here with you today. And I'm excited to hear what the student panelists are going to bring to this continued conversation on resilience. I would like to start with a brief introduction about who I am and what I hope to bring to this panel today. Well, my name is Dr. Valencia Moses. I graduated from Hendrix in 2004. I majored in biology, minored in secondary education. After Hendrix, I went on to get my master's in education from Peabody College at Vanderbilt University. And then I went on to get my PhD from Michigan State University in East Lansing, Michigan. And part of my journey that I wanted to share, just thinking about some things that Attorney Edwards said. She said that part of resiliency is being connected. And while I was a student at Hendrix, I participated in a lot of different organizations. I held some offices while I was there, but it was the people, the support staff, professors. I had people that challenged me to ask questions, to have the courage to be strong and wrong when participating in class. And one of the things that I get to do now, I am a business owner. I founded a company called Vibrant Coaching. And one of the coaching sessions that I got to have with some Hendrix students this week, it kind of came up. If you don't like stand out, if you don't show up, you're not going to stand out. And I think that's really encouraging to realize the ways that I was able to like show up and be able to get support. Just planting a seed real quick before we dive in is that there's an opportunity for you, especially those who are students. You know, if you don't ask the questions, if you don't participate in office hours, who's gonna write letters of recommendation for you for what's next? You know, you got those letters to get into Hendrix or whatever college you're representing with today or associated with today. And so you always want to like be thinking about how are you positioning yourself, and you can put your best foot forward. And so with that, I'm excited about hearing from our student panelists. And for the students, I would love for you to introduce yourself. You can share your name, your school, your major, and after everyone introduces themselves, then we'll dive into the discussion around resilience. So whoever wants to go first, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Hey, I'm Rashana Luster. I'm a student at Arkansas State University. My major is social work with a minor in children's advocacy. And my future goals are to get my master's and open a chain of community centers in minority communities.
Hey, thank you.
Hello, everyone. I hope we're all having a great day today. My name is Bria Alford. I am a sophomore vocal music education major with a minor in leadership studies. What was the other question? I think. Oh,
You're doing great. Yeah.
What do I plan to do in the future? I plan to, teach middle to level school students and also actively work to help and serve underprivileged and underrepresented youth within the community with however I can help, whether it be, helping with nonprofit organizations or just I would love to help with that in that aspect. So
nice. Thanks. Yeah.
So hello, everyone. My name is Maya Henderson. I attend Hendrix College, where I major in English creative writing. In the future, I plan to gravitate towards education and to teach, just wanting to motivate young children that are going out into the world and being the people who we are now. And following that, I also want to take that fight to the courtroom, so to one day be an attorney as well.
All right.
Oh, I apologize. I would also like to say I'm from Arkansas Tech University.
Thank you. And do we have anybody else? Or are we on our panel, our student panel? Just wanted to double check. Okay, well, with that, you can go in whatever order you feel comfortable, but I would like to start with this question. How do you define resilience? Just thinking about what Attorney Edwards was able to share, borrowing from that, whatever notes you might have taken, but also what definition, has kind of come true for you.
I think resilience is how we handle our day-to-day tasks, how we overcome the most difficult obstacles in our life. And I think Dr. Edwards hit everything spot on. It's just being who we are and staying true to ourselves.
I definitely would like to piggyback off Roshana and say, I agree. When I think of resilience, I think of perseverance, being unapologetically you. I think of breaking barriers, whether that be, generational, all the way to like mental barriers, and knowing your self-worth and knowing how to enter spaces and navigate being around people who may not look like you, who may not act like you, but knowing stay true to yourself and knowing how to, I guess, operate in that manner.
I totally agree with everything that's been said. For me, resilience, to put it quite simply, is by being a fighter in your own fight, being a soldier on your own field. And that goes whenever. I know oftentimes as a woman, you have things that are thrown your way, and then adding on the fact that you're Black is like another complexity that often the world does not take too kindly to. And so many times we're in these situations where it requires just a whole nother level of determination and commitment and withstanding. And so to me, it just all factors in with the things that the other ladies have said previously.
Yes, and hearing your conversation, another thing that Attorney Edwards shared is this great affirmation that you have the power to move past your trials. And I thought that was a very powerful moment. And so whoever you are that's joining in and listening in and watching to hear and learn from the student panel, I want you to grab that you do have the power to move past trials. And as kind of Maya was bringing up her identity as a Black woman, this is Women's History Month, so it becomes a chance for us to reflect. And I would love for each of you to name a woman who has contributed to your resilience. And as you're thinking about that, I think this is a great question, because Attorney Edwards mentioned we have to have people in our network. We've probably heard the phrase, it takes a village. Well, we get to construct that village. And so I would love to hear people that inspire you. And those who are watching, those who are listening, those people don't have to be famous. Those people can be in your family. Those people can be in your community. So know that you have freedom to go wherever you want to go. But I would love to hear you name a woman who has played a positive role, made an impact in your life.
I'll go first. I can't really just name one because there's so many people that have influenced me in such a great way. And I will say that a few of them are in this call. So please don't be mad at me. I'm just gonna name one. Dr. Nora Buzahay is in this call, and she was my freshman professor. And well, she was more than my professor. She was just somebody that I could lean on. She gave me advice, business advice, as well as school advice. And she was just somebody that I just looked up to, somebody that I would be happy to say, I know this person, and somebody that I want to introduce people to.
Okay, I'd like to go. Okay, I could speak for a lot of women in saying that my mother is my hugest inspiration when it comes to doing anything. Like, I guess because she faced a lot of adversaries. I think that's the word. Adversity. I guess I'll use the word. Growing up and having me at such a young age, and getting through while she was in her bachelor's degree, and then also having to deciding to go through nursing school with me as a young child. And I remember she told me stories where she had to bring me to class sometimes when she wasn't able to have sitters. And, she also ended up working 2 jobs to support me at the time. And like Dr. V was saying, it does take a village. I grew up around many strong, prayed up women who often helped and, contributed in raising me because of my mother's, struggle in having to, handle working 2 jobs and raising a child and also attending school. So I definitely say my mother's my biggest inspiration because she went back to school, even having 2 other children and working 60 hours plus a week. And so she just graduated her master's in I think nurse practitionering. And so like seeing that as a huge inspiration, seeing my mother walk across that stage and knowing what it took to get there and knowing how many people it took to raise me and to help support my mother within that, I say that she's a huge inspiration. And also I would also like to say, I definitely love to surround myself with women who are uplifting and positive. And speaking to kind of is your name Roshana? I believe your name's Roshana. Is that how you say it, Roshana? Roshana, I didn't want to mispronounce your name. I apologize. So as Roshana was saying, she found someone to look up to, a mentor. I also had a mentor. Her name is Dr. Brooks. So with where I work here at Arkansas Tech, I work very closely with the diversity inclusion department, and she is my mentor, my liaison for the students that I lead here at the diversity inclusion LLC that I help work for. And so like having her to go to anytime I have a question about like, have doubts in my major or have doubts at being at a predominantly white institution, I often go to her and tell her and be able to voice my opinion to Dr. Naquindra Brooks. And it's so good to have someone on campus to help me and guide me in times like this.
So, like the previous women, it's very difficult to narrow it down to one woman. My mom too was a single mother. After she divorced, it was just she and I. I have no additional siblings. And so we were able to develop this sort of bond where we talk on the phone every day. And child, she won't let me go a day without talking to her anyways. But we talk on the phone every day. She gives me that extra encouragement. And it's truly a blessing to see a woman and to witness a woman and have a woman so close to you that embodies everything that you would want for yourself. And so I take a really great look at her on some days and I'm just overwhelmed and in awe of how she contributed to how I am. Additionally to my mom is definitely the team of women here at Hendrix. I'm a transfer student, so I haven't had a ton of time with them. But Miss Carissa and Miss Keisha, like the women in the diversity and inclusion office here are amazing. From day one, just being able to see certain smiles and just know that you have someone here is worthwhile. And then also, when I was in high school, you always have those certain people, those certain staff members who don't necessarily connect with you, don't necessarily connect with the things that you want to see for yourself. They don't necessarily have a selected interest in you. And so it was a woman that was at my high school back in Forest City. Her name is Abby Robinson. And at one point she taught my mom, and my mom is like 54. And so you can imagine how long it's been that she's been a part of our family. And I was preparing for all of these scholarships and all of these school, college applications and my next steps. And over the years, she just took me under her wing, making sure that she was giving me sound advice, because it's one thing for people to say, yeah, you can do that. But it's another thing to have someone tell you how to do that and the best choices to get those things done. And Ms. Robinson was that. And even as I'm preparing for graduation this May, I will be on the phone with her this afternoon after this is over to discuss what I'll be doing next and the best steps to take for that. And so having a woman who knows her business and is willing to help and assist is major.
Yes, and all of you wonderful women have done a fantastic job setting me up for this next question, which is about that process of how did you reach out and how did you get connected? Because a big part of resiliency, as Attorney Edwards spoke about, was being connected. And so part of the success that I'm hearing that has happened and is happening and will happen in your life is connected to the connections that you've been able to make, who's in your network. So for other students who are on there, and even for staff and faculty who are on the call, what are some things that helped you to operate in resilience? And so feel free, if it helps, to share a challenge, if you're comfortable with sharing like a challenge that might have happened that motivated you to reach out. I think we could learn a great deal from what you would share.
Okay, I think I'll start. I've had quite a few challenges, but this is the one that stuck with me the most. I'll never forget. It was my freshman year in my English class, and I was the only African American student. So I decided to write about how minority students don't really fit in here. Like, we really don't have a place. And my professor told me that that topic was unacceptable. So I had to do my final paper over something else. But I reached out to a few people and they just helped me understand that sometimes people aren't open to those discussions, and we have to understand that it is a touchy topic.
Were you gonna? Okay, I think I'm good. So I agree. I definitely have had like many challenges, especially within the past year of, just going through a lot. I definitely had a lot of struggles within like, my personal life, because I think I was in my freshman year, or no? Yes, it was my freshman year when I was involved in a pretty serious wreck. And I also had, just was healing from a pretty toxic, relationship. And, I was starting to struggle with my attendance and my academia. And so I definitely took the time to, I guess, adapt and realize, stop and go, okay, it feels like my life is falling apart right now, but I need to persevere. I need to get through the semester. I need to, take whatever I'm going through and channel and tune into a more positive and outlook in a positive environment. So I did reach out to professors on campus, to people, and asking them what can I do to help? What can I do to fix this situation? Because my life seems to be spiraling out of control. And so that was when I decided, okay, let me reach out to the diversity and inclusion department and see what ways that I can get help from others and resources on campus in order to, I guess, help with my academia and help with my personal and internal struggles that I was having. And so I definitely was going through a lot and facing a lot of adversity, and used that to channel it in a more positive way to reach out to others because I needed help. I did. And luckily they were able to help as well. And I was able to finish out the semester very fine.
So being an only child, I feel blessed that that is something that I have, but then also it can serve as kind of a crutch or a handicap. So when you're moving into spaces where you're used to being by yourself and you function well being by yourself, I moved here thinking that I could do the same. Right. So I moved here thinking to Hendrix, thinking that I would be okay. Just keep your head down and do everything that you're supposed to do, and you won't have any problems. And so I still adapt that to my life now. I don't really tend to do a whole bunch of fraternizing, but I also had to realize when I'm looking on campus and not seeing me in different faces. I'm not seeing the same skin that I share on different bodies. I'm seeing a lot more white people than what I am used to. And Hendrix being such a small campus doesn't help that, right? Because that means on every corner that you're turning, you're seeing someone who doesn't look like you. And so what I had to do was really just kind of put myself out there. And that meant at lunch, not always sitting by myself, sitting with a group of other students, because it's only like this many of us here that look like me, and engaging in these conversations and making these open connections. And then from doing that and putting myself out there and signing up to do stuff like this, or people recognizing that I may have something to bring to the table, really motivated me to continue to make these connections, because it's definitely needed. We can't function alone, definitely need that village. And so yeah, it was very hard being here. I called my mom the first week where we were doing orientation and stuff, and I said, girl, I'm coming home, because I literally couldn't do it. I said, I'm coming home. And she's like, no, stay. And just kind of had to find my way. So yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate all the insights. There's a lot of love being shown in the chat for how you're showing up. And I read recently in a space where part of resiliency requires authenticity. So in hearing your stories and sharing how you've shown up, sometimes that's been rejected. Sometimes that is realizing that there's a comfort zone that you're in, and finding that courage. But there's something that I want to make sure I say, because of what I was hearing across what you shared, is that for anyone, no matter what your age and stage is right now, when you're going through things, when you feel like life is falling apart, things are spiraling down, you may feel alone, but you do not have to go through it alone. So I applaud those of you who have found the courage to reach out. And that is a part of being resilient. And sometimes there are messages that get sent that you have to figure everything out, especially for those of you that are in college. That's like the point. That's why you're in college, to learn things to help you to figure out. But when you sometimes have that pressure that you have to figure everything out right then, that is a perfect opportunity to reach out to that network, the people who are in your village, the people who are in your corner. And so kind of like in hearing how the people in your network have contributed to your resilience, I also wanted to just find out a little bit more about that definition of resilience that all of you all are making, and what is something that you could share as an encouragement to other students who are joining in, or even advice that you may have for staff, faculty, on how they can support students who are like you.
I don't think I'll be able to answer all those questions because I'm here. So my thing is to definitely ask those difficult questions. If you don't understand anything, please ask a question, because that'll be the only way you'll understand anything in life. That's just about it, probably.
I think when we're talking about discussing resilience, I think that it's important for everyone to understand that adversity is a part of the human existence. Adversity does not discriminate. Bad things is going to happen to everyone. It's just important that we acknowledge that those bad things and that life happens to everyone, and that you aren't alone. And what we can do is control how we react and how we think and how we channel that energy that has happened upon to us, and that focusing on like what that you can change about the situation. So as far as like me, for example, whenever I was going through a lot, like realizing that, yes, it does seem like it's hard. Yes, it does seem like all this is happening at once, and it's such a really rough time for me, but knowing that you can channel that into doing something positive and doing something better for yourself, and overcoming that situation. And so I guess I would say for that is just redirecting your energy from that negative and turning it into doing what makes you happy, or what will help you cope with what's going on in your life. Also, I would say to stay motivated, keep knowing that your why, keep knowing your, as Dr. Attorney Edwards was saying, you're finding your mission statement and knowing, okay, well, this is why I'm here. This is why I feel like I belong in this space, and just finding that sense of belonging no matter where you are, and being unapologetically yourself, as I was saying. And also finding those people that you can talk to. When it comes to addressing like how staff can help, I would say look for the signs of students who seem like they may be struggling, students who may feel like they are, slacking, and you may not know them or you may not know them, but can tell like, oh, they may not be the type of students who will act like or behave that way, or look like they're going through. And I guess reach out. Often the biggest thing you can do is reach out to them, because oftentimes it's kind of hard for us as students to come to you about situations, because we feel like, you're a teacher, you have your own life going. You probably don't want to hear about my life, but I do know that you care. We do know that you offer, as guidance and resources for us. So I guess find those students and reach out to them.
Dr. V, really quickly, could you repeat the question for me? I just want to make sure I answer. Dr. V, can she hear me?
Yes, I'm muted. Sorry.
You're fine.
I would like to welcome you to kind of provide any advice, maybe about advice to students, or you could even provide some advice for staff on things they can do to kind of support resilience.
Okay, just need that more, reiterate it one more time. So as far as advice towards students, one of the major things, and one of the things that I'm learning, because like Attorney Edwards, I am a recovering perfectionist. I think that everything is supposed to be a certain way. I think everything will be a certain way. And so one of those things was just being one with your ability to say no. I oftentimes feel really tired, and it's because I say yes to everything. Like literally, if you ask me to do anything, I'm going to say yes. And it's not a problem. I like being involved, but there can't be a you without you. So without you loving on yourself, without you taking time for yourself, without you writing to yourself and just embracing yourself, being on your knees, meditating, without you just being one with you, you can't put your best foot forward to those commitments and to those things that you wish to be determined in, and put your all in and be resilient, because resilience takes strength and it takes energy, and it just takes you being connected with you. And so I would say that. And then for those faculty members and things of that nature, I would say to just, whenever you doubt if you're doing enough, you're probably not. And I know there's no one's responsibility in many cases, but whenever you feel like maybe I'm not doing enough, maybe I could do something here, maybe she's not okay and I should reach out, do it. Because oftentimes, like someone said a minute ago, it's not always in us to reach out to say something first. And so if you feel anything is off, we just want to check in, I wholeheartedly motivate you to, because you'll never know what a little word of kindness can do for us.
I would like to add something.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I know for me, this is an experience that I had about a year ago. I was going through this phase of depression, and like I really needed help, but I didn't know how to express it. And I felt like if I did express it, it would make it seem as if I wasn't capable of getting the things that I needed to get done. So it was just hard for me to actually take that step and get help. And for the students, counseling services are free. Use them.
Oh, no.
I kind of also wanted to piggyback on both of the panelists and speaking about like good coping mechanisms for when you are going through hard times and when you do need to stay motivated. I know when I was definitely feeling overwhelmed and any time that she was kind of speaking about journaling and music, I was thinking like singing, talking to other people, taking walks and just reflecting on your day. Meditation's a really big one, or even exercising if that's what you're into. But I know a big thing for me was positive affirmations. And if you're a believer, praying. That's a big thing. I believe in every day looking at myself and saying, you are successful in whatever you do. You are strong, you are wise, you are beautiful, you belong wherever, in whatever you feel like you're doing. But I believe really strongly in positive affirmations because you can speak life into others and you can speak life into yourself as well. So just having those coping mechanisms and finding what makes you stay motivated and what makes you de-stress and relax is a huge thing for resilience.
Amen to that. All of that. It was beautiful to hear how you were showing up and what you were sharing. And for those of you who have questions, please do put them in the chat and we will field those as we can. And just reflecting as people are thinking about the questions they have for the panelists, we celebrate, overcoming and being an overcomer. But in order to overcome, you have to have something to come over. So being resilient means you're overcoming adversity. But some key themes from things that people have shared, you don't have to do that alone. Knowing how to reach out. And sometimes that just is a lot of courage. I mean, it's risky, but sometimes having a place to start is telling someone, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. And you have safe people. And sometimes you just take time to think, or for some of you, take time to pray. And I believe you'll be led to the person who's safe to be able to reach out to. And so I also really celebrate that challenge for faculty and staff to reach out. And if it feels like, how do I do that without singling someone out? You could do things through your learning system or through email. You could just ask like, how's everybody doing? Send me a picture of an emoji to describe your day on a scale of 1 to 10. How okay are you? You can do kind of blanket things and just open that door, because sometimes it helps just to know that someone cares. Like just asking, can help trigger someone to think, oh, wow, I'm seen, I'm cared for. I'm not just a number. So for some of the faculty and staff on and other leaders at campuses, know that it doesn't mean that you're calling someone out or singling someone out when you're providing support. But so start where you can, and I'm sure you have colleagues, and just be real. Sometimes it's just going to be awkward, but I'd rather you be courageous and embrace the awkward, make space for that discomfort when you're asking for help. Even for faculty and staff, reaching out to someone, be like, hey, how do you check in on your students? Because there's a whole pandemic outside, everybody. And we've been dealing with that. And I'm not seeing any questions in the chat yet. So the question I'll go to next is, COVID-19, how have you been overcoming? What have you been doing? Kind of like Maya and others. Shauna, I had to think about it. If I messed it up, I'm sorry. And Bria. Roshana, it is the long A. Okay, thank you so much. Roshana, Maya, and Bria, you kind of touched on some of the things that have been challenging, but in terms of the pandemic, all of you kind of touched on self-care. How have you been taking care of yourself? What things have you been doing to overcome, to be resilient?
So during the pandemic, It has been really stressful because I am a hands-on learner and I'm completely virtual now. So when I feel overwhelmed, I'll turn my phone completely off for about 3 hours a day. I go out, get my nails done, get my hair done. I just do a self-care day or I do a prayer day. Like I'll show my journal. I have a truth and trust journal, but I use that. It asks me questions. It just let everything out. It allows me to vent.
Wow, COVID, the pandemic. Okay. So for me, I think when, back when I think March, when it really just started hitting and we all went virtual, it was kind of difficult to maintain like those virtual classes, especially for me because I'm a vocal music education major. So my major is based on performance. My major is based on in-class learning theory, in choir. Like we're pretty like in person all the time. So having to switch to that virtual based learning was really, really stressful and difficult. And, I noticed that I turned to social media often and I was looking at other people and I realized how toxic that ended up being because by the end of the summer, I realized I was looking at everyone else's life and feeling like I was at this stagnant point and everyone was out, doing something, or how people post their lives. And it's going to be cookie cutter. It's going to be what people want you to see. So I guess I kind of had to realize that, I'm fine. I'm doing great. I'm still in school. Like you're still doing for yourself and not let what other people are posting and what people are putting on social media while you have nothing to do but be on your phone affect how you see yourself and affect your self-worth and your belonging. So I definitely did like what Roshana was saying, take my phone, take it away, throw it away, put it up, just stress, like pray and do a lot of things. Like I love to sing. So I sang, I listened to music, just anything that took me away from, I guess, the toxicness of social media at the time. So yes.
So, COVID came, knocked on all our doors, and this when resiliency had to be amplified times like 10, right? And so that required me to, like I said, really be one with myself. But for me being a writer, that meant really throwing myself into my work. The thing that I feel like I'm greatest at is writing. And that goes from poetry to essay to music to whatever. And so taking the time, like the lady said, and turning things off, things that don't really benefit us, don't really inspire us too much, turning those off and really focusing on things that are dear to you. And that could even be family. I think a huge part of this at one point was just really reconnecting with home. When we were saying back in like March, it was really abrupt, and it was around this time, I think the day of the summit, maybe last year, I was really thrown back to the wolves, out there. And so being back home and spending time with my grandmother, and being safe, of course, and being back home with my mom, it really put me back in a place where I felt most safe. And in that safety, it gave me more room to grow still. And so, yeah, those are just things that I did, as well as I learned how to do my own nails, child, and learn how to do a whole bunch of other things. So yeah, just finding things that bring you joy.
Wonderful. I just wanted to do a quick check-in. It's already 12:48, and I wanted to I see a question just popped in. And could someone let me know, confirm, are we ending at 12:50 or at 1? Just so I can steward our time well, and before I share the question that just rolled in. If someone could, let me know about that. And in the meantime, the question that has come in has to do with PWIs, predominantly white institutions. And the question is, how have you felt at PWIs with feeling included amongst the campus? Who are those individuals that you have connected to that have helped you to build that sense of community, safety, and acceptance? Great question. Thank you.
Okay, we can go ahead and go until 1 p.m. So keep it rolling.
Thank you.
Coming into a PWI, I did not feel welcomed as welcome as I should. But I did connect with some amazing people. I am a part of the Multicultural Center, Sister to Sister, Pretty Proverbs, BSA. It's just so many things that are on campus for us. And I just dived right into them.
I did the same thing, girl. I did. Coming in, I was like, whoa, you know, kind of like seeing that. It's a kind of a culture shock to see how much of our demographic is just limited at a PWI. Like they kind of like don't really tell you when you're touring, like, because you know they show you what you want to see, but when you get here you realize, whoa, like it's really a culture shock coming in. So I definitely joined like African American Student Association. I also joined a sorority. I'm president of Zeta Phi Beta sorority on campus here at the Beta Phi chapter. I did take the time to involve myself with a lot of multicultural organizations and become and meet people through there. Like my best friend, I met her through African American Student Association. We had game night. And so like, I guess using what is offered on campus and looking out for the resources and finding people around campus that you feel like you can talk to, that you feel comfortable around, and using that as a gateway to feel more belonging at a PWI, because sometimes it's a little hard to feel represented there and feel like, you know, like a sense of acceptance, like you belong here. So
Yeah, being a student at a PWI is one of the most difficult things I've ever done. Before coming here, I was Spelman all the way. I was Howard all the way. And even getting into those scholarship money wasn't always, you know, too cute. And so I stayed in Arkansas, and going to Hendrix, being Black, you always are faced with like these microaggressions, and you always have these things like people putting your money on the counter and your hand open, stuff like that. But coming here, it was like on a much larger scale. People would walk super faster to the door so they just would have to hold it open for you. Or you would walk down the sidewalk and they would be like, okay, we're just gonna bump into each other because I'm not moving, stuff like that. And so it was really difficult to like hold back your anger, or hold back just feeling really isolated and like no one here can understand you, right? And so it just had to click with me really fast, because you don't have a lot of time to learn, that you are here for a purpose. And you wouldn't be where you are if you weren't built for it. And so, you know, God doesn't put us in places where he doesn't feel we can manage. And it just took me really getting one with SBC, Students for Black Culture, because all of us, for the most part, are there. And so engaging in those conversations and going to the meetings and having outside moments. And then also I was listening of Hendrix is here, but UCA is like 15 minutes away from us or so. And I wouldn't necessarily always party with the Hendrix crowd. I would bounce on over to UCA where there's a much larger group of us. And so I was able to make connections there too. So just again, putting yourself out there and knowing that you're beautiful, you're smart, you belong, you are, you know, made for this.
Yes, I really appreciate that, especially the shout outs to the spaces that have been created. And so I just want to give you another chance. I know some of you have already shared some spaces, but and feel free to drop some of those spaces in the chat in case you have others who have joined in. You know, we have a shout out to the Multicultural Affairs Center. You know, at ASU and other spaces. And that is the power of showing up and going to events. I won't name the person who I learned this from, but it was a person on staff at a college who shared how there was like this event advertised. One student showed up. And if you were that one student, there would be temptation over Zoom to just like leave the meeting. This is going to be uncomfortable. But this staff person was telling me that because that student stayed on, they ended up having like this powerful one-on-one conversation with someone who actually was in the area of their interest and is now going to be a part of that network. And that student has already displayed being able to show up, be the only one, and take advantage of the opportunity. So for those of you who are getting these emails and you're seeing opportunities, you know, props to you for being a part of the summit, but that could be a part of increasing your network and getting that support. It could lead to internships, paid and otherwise, because that's the power of social network. When we connect to other people, we then can be plugged in to what they have going on. And I'm doing this right now because I showed up at a virtual holiday party as a Hendrix alum. Like, it's amazing where those moments can go. And all right, we have a brand new Hendrix NAACP chapter, thanks to the determination of students. That is amazing. And just to let y'all know, the struggle is real, which contributes to the opportunity to be resilient. In a class of 243, I was one of 7 Blacks that graduated in 2004. We literally went to Walmart and took a picture together to commemorate, and we called ourselves the Magnificent Seven. So, you know, it's important to, you know, reach out and do what you can to know, as Maya Angelou said famously in some of her work, you know, we are the hope and dream of the slave. And sometimes when days get really hard, I think about like what my life looks like, the opportunities that I can go for were opportunities that others didn't have. And that helps me to kind of keep pushing forward. So to all our panelists, I would love to give you the chance to say some final words, and I'm going to drop my email in the chat. Student panelists, please reach out to me, and anyone else joining us, you can reach out to me too. But I would love to just keep you encouraged, because here's something that happens. Rarely do people say, "Oh, I'm too encouraged. Can you stop, please?" Like, we benefit from having someone in our corner and cheering us on, and I would love to keep cheering on all of you. So any parting words to those who have joined us today, like final thoughts as we wrap up?
I would say definitely be that resource that you needed coming into college, because I guarantee it's somebody coming in that's struggling as hard as you were or harder.
Please never stop speaking out and voicing your opinion and letting people know when you are feeling like you are not heard or feeling like you don't belong, especially if you are at a predominantly white institution. And never stop reaching out and finding resources, because, and like, I love things, events like this, and having this chance to speak and use my platform to explain how to help others. Like, you never know what you say, how it could bring up new events or organizations, or start something new just from you speaking out, or just from you, you know, bringing to the table, this is what's going on, this is how I feel. And so, like, the faculty, they use this and they hear us, and they love to know what's going on, because that's how they can help us. So I guess never stop speaking out and voicing your concerns, and also be yourself.
I would just say continue to pursue those joys, those things that bring you peace and things that bring you power, to continue to be hearing ears and shoulders for those that you don't even know that needs you, and everything that you bring to the table. And I would also say don't shrink. PWI in the world, whatever, don't shrink. The very rooms that you feel like you don't belong in, you bust through the doors, okay? And you do what you need to do so that they know, okay, that you belong and that you're gonna do amazing, if not better than what they expect. So that's all I would say.
Oh, well, I mean, timing is perfect. Those words are powerful. Yes, you belong in whatever room you are in, and you have what it takes. So blessings to everybody. with whatever the rest of your day looks like. I would love to hear from you in my inbox. And thank you for this incredible opportunity to learn from your experience. And sincerely, all the best as you move forward, not just in scholarship, but in the contribution you're going to make in society. And as someone put in the chat, the future is right. You are the future now. And thank you so much again for this opportunity to listen and learn from you.
All right, I would like to thank you, Dr. Moses, for that great session. I also would like to thank the student panelists. Everything that you guys said was amazing. You know, being a college student myself, I definitely identify with a lot of you all, especially talking about the PWI stuff. And I definitely agree with the encouragement to not shrink yourselves, but actually go ahead and become larger. Because if anybody on this call knows me, y'all know I'm Day. I'm going to be me, and I'm going to be bold, loud, and proud. And so I just thank you guys for that information and that wonderful encouragement. Yes, be bold, like they said in the comments, Miss Williamson. I also would like to make a quick announcement that if you guys are looking for the program so you can just keep up with what's going on, it was actually sent to you guys email, the email that you registered for this with. But now after that, we're gonna move on to our next session. This lady that I am about to introduce is someone who most of us are all familiar with, the wonderful Dr. Alice Hines, our 2020 CWS Leadership Legacy Award recipient. She will provide words of encouragement to the summit participants to leave everyone in attendance with just great information and words of encouragement. So I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Hines. Nice to see you, by the way.
Well, hello. It's good to see you also. And thank you very much. I told Ms. Carissa over here, I don't know that I can be very much help to anybody, but I'm very glad to be here. And I was listening to comments made by the young ladies, and I think they're all so important. This is and I think everybody who knows anything about me knows, I understand zero about technology. So if something goes wrong in here, you're just going to have to wait for somebody to come and straighten it out, because it won't be Alice, because she does not know how to do anything. And I don't want to know, which I know is sad, but I don't want to know any more than I know. But Miss Keisha told me that we were talking about resiliency, and that my comments should be focused on those. Now I'm trying to figure out how to look into all these things they have set up here that told me I'm supposed to look straight at something. And I'm going to try to do that. And I wanted to start by using a quote from Dr. King. And this is one that you don't often hear from him, because it's something he wrote when he was a student at Morehouse. And it was actually in the Maroon Tiger in 1947. But here's what he said. He said, one of the chief aims of education is that it should enable a person to shift and weigh evidence, to discern the true from the false, the real from the unreal, and the facts from the fiction. Therefore, he thinks, the function of education is to teach us how to think intensively and to think critically. But if it stops there with only efficiency, he said, we have created a menace for ourselves. That intelligence is not enough. Intelligence plus character, that is the true goal of education. And he goes on to say, and I'll be through with this in a minute, the complete education gives a person not only power of concentration, but power of worthy objectives upon which to concentrate. And I want to stop with that, because when she told me about resiliency, I thought about it. I was here at Hendrix for 36 years. And for all of my, I guess you would say, maturation period, I come from a completely Black background. And I don't use the phrase African-American, I have nothing against it, but I define myself and see myself as a Black person. And I use the word Black. I grew up in a Black community. from first grade to graduating from college, I was in Black schools. I went to Black elementary school, high school, and a Black college. And so when I came out of that college, one of the things that Spelman said to me and to other women in my class was that you have a brain, use it. Now you can imagine how long ago that was, but it was something that was very encouraging, because where were you going to hear somebody say to a Black female from rural Arkansas that you have a brain, use it? And I think that's what Dr. King meant. So when I think about resiliency, and I think about my years here at Hendrix, because I spent more time here than I spent anywhere else, and I will say initially that I chose education. See, many people have said to us, and certainly to Black women, that, well, you do that because you can't do anything else. Well, that's not true. I came to Hendrix after having 2 other jobs, and I chose education. I had been in education before I came here. I left a tenured position to come to Hendrix, where I may or may not have gotten tenure. And all of you in education know exactly how that is. It's a game. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. And so one of the things I think of resiliency as simply staying power. And I don't see that as the same as perseverance. Staying power is the ability to withstand something. And I think we need to start by understanding, and I'm sorry I didn't get into all of the discussion, but I think I heard this at the tail end of it. We've got to understand, and if these last 4 years haven't taught us this, the climate that we live in is an oppressive climate. It just is. And by ourselves, we can't change the whole climate. So if we go into this thinking, it's all right, look at what we can do. See, we've already missed Dr. King's point. We have not been critical. Critical says you make yourself aware of your circumstances. And so what I would say to each of you is what I said to every female that came onto this campus after I was hired, because Hendrix was not female friendly. It was a male-dominated campus. Men made all the decisions. And what I said to each one of them is, and this is true of us as Black women especially, we like to talk a lot. And I said, but your primary goal ought to be to listen when you first come in. Because as I heard you say, you need to check out your environment. And so when I go to faculty meetings, sorry, I forget, I'm not supposed to look off this thing. When I go to faculty meeting, I just sit there. I'd look around and I would see who was sitting by whom, who came in with whom, who voted, because we had to vote by raising our hands. I would look to see, now who's voting together? What are they sitting together? Know your environment. Don't go in thinking, oh, they're glad to have me. Well, you know, they may be. But we need to make a distinction between what is praise and what is affirmation. Praise is generic. Most people don't even pay any attention to what you're saying. They say, oh, you're just so wonderful. That was such a good job. This is what great. But affirmation is when you've done something and you know that a change has been made. So they're different. And it's rare that they're actually going to affirm us in the way that they should. So you listen, pay attention, because one of the problems that we have as Black women is that, as I said initially, we talk a lot, but we don't listen. And we are a very diverse group of women. But notice that sometimes that very diversity destroys us because we're not supported. And we need to learn to be, to support those who are doing the work, and I'm holding my fingers up, who are doing the work that needs to be done. And part of that for me, and I used to say that to the students here at Hendrix, because we could sit in my office and talk. And I said, we have to learn to respect each other and respect the work that the other person is doing. And as I would tell my students in writing, I said, what you're trying to get your audience to do is say, I understand what you mean. Now notice the word choice there. It doesn't mean that I have to agree with you, but I need to understand what you're talking about. Because you may well have seen something that Alice didn't see, or heard and understood something in a different way than Alice did. Now you're probably saying, what does that have to do with resiliency? You've got to understand your environment. Understand the people who are plugging away at the same thing that you're plugging away at, and respect them. And you should also, we should, I'm not saying you, we, but I'm not doing very much these days other than writing for some people. But we need to move off the dime of it has to be done my way. It doesn't have to be done my way. The concern here ought to be getting it done, period. And to do that, a resilient woman has to understand herself. We need to be honest, and anybody here who knows me, either in my little community or here at this campus or anywhere, I would always say to them, I happen to like Alice Hines, and I do. I like myself. With all my flaws, I still like me. But I also am honest with myself. I know what my strengths are, and I also know what my weaknesses are. And I may not broadcast them or put them on a list anywhere, but I don't lie to myself. And we should never do that, because in the end, it weakens your strength when we don't tell ourselves the truth. And so part of that for me, and I heard someone say it, is about being self-aware. I think that's what I heard a young lady say before when I first joined this conversation. And that is absolutely right. Know yourself. Know who you are. Know what you can do. Know what you can't do. And that's exactly what I did here at Hendrix. When I wanted something passed in the faculty meeting, after I had examined who talks to whom and all of that, I would go around and visit people individually, the faculty, because I wanted to know before I went into that faculty meeting that day, how many votes I knew I could count on. And that way is one-on-one conversation, but it comes from me knowing myself. And I knew that I could go and I would just call people and say, well, can I drop by your office and talk to you about blah, 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 whatever the issue was that we were voting on. And it need not even be something that I brought up. But it was important to me to know what I thought I could do. And that comes from knowing yourself, respecting yourself, and knowing what your weaknesses and your strengths are. And I think that's very important. And someone has called it just holding up the mirror to yourself and saying, and I would say, well, Alice, you can't do this, or you aren't going to get that. But I knew from understanding me, and I also knew that I have a temper, and I knew what things would just set me off. And the Black students, members who were members of SBC, always knew that when February came around, I did not want to see any of these movies where they were lynching Black people and that sort of thing. I said, I don't handle that well. I'm too close to it. My grandfather was the first generation out of slavery. I'm too close to that. I don't want to see it. It doesn't mean that I'm dishonest. And occasionally I would watch them, but I just don't want to do it. It didn't mean they shouldn't show the movies or whatever, but they understood. I could sit there and I could do pretty well, but after a while, because I remember going to the theater here in Conway to see a movie, and before I knew it, I was talking out. I thought, oh, this is not good, Alice. I said, you're not supposed to be in the movie saying, I can't tell you what I said, but saying some things because you don't like what you see on the screen. That is not how you do. And you wouldn't let a student do that. Why are you doing it? Or I went to a movie, one of the movies, and I saw a scene. I just got up and walked out. I thought, I can't deal with this. And so again, it's a matter of knowing yourself. Know what you can do, know what you can't do. And it doesn't mean that you can't do something differently at another time. But I think that's absolutely important. And that's what I wrote down. Because we are, and we need to remember that. We are the descendants of double consciousness. We just are. And we have roles, you know, we're this today, we're this afternoon. It doesn't mean that we're being two-faced or we're playing games. It's understanding the situation. And part of that, knowing the situation, is to recognize, and I think I heard some of you say this, recognize what the barriers are to your success. See, you have to do that by focusing. That's what King meant. It's not, you know, it's not all about how intelligent you are and what your ACT scores are or whatever. I mean, I scored pretty well on the GRE and I never understood why, because a lot of that I knew I didn't know what I was doing. And I knew it, but you learn how to take a darn test, okay? But I knew I didn't have that particular skill, but know what the barriers are. And right now, there are a lot of them out there that are roadblocks for people like us, especially for women. And they're going to impede our success if we don't know what they are. And part of the load that we have to shoulder, and that's really how I see it, is that we're working against culturally embedded attitudes about Black women. They're embedded in this culture. You can hear them when people are speaking to you, and you know that's coming from something that's embedded in the culture. I had a good friend of mine who's moved into a very expensive condo, and she said she was out on her balcony just last week, and a lady from a different ethnic and racial group had her children out there. And so the little boy looked up and saw her standing on her balcony. And obviously, what did the child say? Hey, Mom, there's an Ian. And it wasn't Negro. It's there. Culturally embedded attitudes. So when we go into the jobs, and we may be, for my time here, I was at Hendrix for 12 years as the only Black person in the faculty, okay? When you're the only, okay, you're carrying a lot of weight on your shoulders. And understand that you're dealing with a group of people who perhaps unwittingly have missed understanding what's embedded in their own culture, that they have benefited from, and that we have been penalized by. And we need to recognize that, because if we don't, it's going to remain a barrier. And I had that written down as something that I wanted to say today. And then, of course, you got to deal with microaggression. It's there. Recognize it. And see, if we're so busy and working against each other, we don't have time to recognize all these things. Recognize them and make notes of them. And I know people used to say to me, well, who's got your back? And I used to say, I do. Have your own back. Any email, I never sent an email out of Hendrix once I learned how to do it. I never sent one that I didn't print off a copy and put it in a folder, because I didn't trust the email system. I didn't own the darn computer. I didn't trust it. I said, it may be gone. See, I don't know enough about technology. I printed a copy and saved it. I said, because you got to protect what you say and what you do. And I know it makes it sound like, well, my goodness, how do I ever get to do anything if I got to play detective to myself? Well, resiliency is also about being prepared. And being prepared is to take charge of your own success. And realize, do we have equity out there now? No. Do we actually have access? No. And when I heard a speaker not too long ago, and I thought this was very interesting, and I did not know it. And she was speaking and she said, we've got to remember, we're in the room, but we're not at the table. And I thought, that is a wonderful expression. We are in the room, but we're not always at the table. And then once we're at the table, we're not always recognized so that we can speak. And so let's not be happy thinking, and I'm not trying to make anybody be sad, but I tend to think as a Hobbesian. Let's not just pat ourselves on the back and say we made it, because we have not. So as we look around at what we see in our environment, let's be aware of people's unconscious biases, because I truly do believe, and I have wonderful friends who are not Black, and I can recognize what are the unconscious biases. I participated in a discussion group not too long ago, and it was going pretty well. And I was listening, because as I said, I'm a good listener. And I heard some things and I thought, I thought, well, Alice, it's time for you to back out of this, because it's not going as we would hope. Because there were too many biases that were coming out from people who thought they were really being very open. So I'd advise us to think about it. Trust in ourselves, and let's do some self-help, some self-health. Take care of ourselves. I did hear that. Back away and give yourselves time to breathe. Listen, take care of yourself. You know, when I started work, I was telling my nephew how much I made the first year. And of course, I wasn't teaching then, but my total pay salary for that year was $4,735 for 12 months. And he said, "You've got to be kidding." And I said, "No." But ladies, I learned a long time ago that if I worked for 1 month, Alice paid herself. And when you're only making $4,000, sometimes it was just a decent pair of Hanes stockings. Other times it was a decent pair, no, it's not a pair, a decent tube of lipstick. But I thought, I'm not working any darn day that I don't pay myself, because I'm putting up with a bunch of mess. And Alice is going to get something for putting up and staying the course. Treat yourself well. Take a respite. I always took a vacation in the summer because we didn't get paid. And so my first jobs as a teacher, I had to go from May to October without a paycheck. But Alice gave herself a vacation. And it might be just driving 100 miles away and staying in a hotel. And then as I made a little more money, I could visit states that I'd never visited. But what I'm saying to you is be good to yourself. You deserve it. Any Black woman that's working in any state in this country deserves to treat herself, because nobody else probably will. And that includes your own family. Now, I've been the caregiver to my mother. That's why I came back and took this job in Conway, Arkansas, because my mother could not drive. My father was dead. There was nobody to take care of her. And when you live in rural Arkansas, which is what our legislature doesn't seem to understand or care, if you're Black, and not only Black people, but where's your public transportation? There's no public transportation here in Conway. They got a very fledgling cab company, but you're not getting enough money to catch a darn cab. So you gotta help each other. So I came back to help my mother. So I became caregiver to my mother, then to my brother, and then to my uncle, most recently. But I was working right here the whole time. I never missed a day of work. I didn't miss class. Don't look for excuses. You talk about being resilient. It's being able. I heard somebody say that, you know, you got to be able to bounce back. You got to be able to bounce back. I didn't ask to be let off. You can shoulder it, you see? You come from a legacy of strong Black people. How do you think they survived slavery? How do you think they've survived the oppression that we have lived through ever since slavery? It's still there. You're stronger than you think. So we don't have to look for excuses, but that doesn't mean if you need a break, take it. But I came to work every day. Stayed the whole time, because Hendrix had a little culture where Some of the people came at 10 and they were ready to leave at 2. Well, you can't teach and work with students and be a true help to them if you come in at 10 and leaving at 2. All you did was teach a class. Well, this is supposed to be a private institution. When I went to Spelman, folks, we were on campus all day. We couldn't go anywhere else. And I had teachers all day long, okay? And so that was my model for what a teacher ought to do. It said I ought to get here and I ought to stay here until time to go home. And time to go home for me was 5 o'clock. And when my mother was ill, I had somebody staying there and I told them I will be home by 5:30. And I was there to take care of my mother. So love yourself. And I think I'm running over Miss Keisha's time. She told me 1:25, I'm about there. And I probably haven't told you anything you didn't already know. And so I'll apologize to you for that already. But we have to handle the adversities of life. And unfortunately, ladies, there are a lot of them out there. And it doesn't mean we can't handle them. That's what resiliency is to me. It's handling them. And there's going to be sunshine. I wasn't sad here at Hendrix every day. I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed the students. I understood the colleagues with whom I worked, those with whom I disagreed. I thought I was a very cheerful person. Now, you might have to ask them what they thought about me, but I'm telling you what I thought about myself. And you can do it. You came up in a different environment than I did. You have advantages that I never had, but you have some disadvantages too. See, all my teachers were Black, from elementary school through college. They all were. And they all supported even a fledgling student like me. And I wasn't a very great student either. I used to tell them, I said, I was all right, but I wasn't great, but I wasn't stupid either. And I got a good education as an undergraduate. It has seen me through all of these years, and I'm almost 80 now. And that's what you have to do. Believe in yourself, but don't fool yourself. Trust your friends, but pay attention. Look at the environment you're working in and be sure you understand it, and don't let it manipulate you, because you're your own person. And Ms. Keisha, I think I'm over time, and I don't know, there's nobody in this room with me to tell me what to do next. So somebody just needs to say, shut up. And if you have any comments, or if you think I've told you something that isn't true, I'll just say so. I am totally open to anybody's critique of whatever I may have said.
Dr. Hines, I am not going to tell you to shut up, but I will say thank you for always sharing these words of wisdom. Also, we actually have like a kind of big deal, big surprise for you. So
Okay.
We would just like to thank you today.
Welcome.
So I'm just gonna let people in the comments say what they need to say. I just know that I personally took a lot of notes while you were talking, because I always want to make sure I catch those words of wisdom and keep them in my mind and in my heart. And one thing that I really like that you said was be good to yourself.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of us who I actually like the part where you were talking about being good to yourself, how you were saying that you were not working just to work, but you were going to work for yourself. So you were going to treat yourself. And I think that's something me as a woman, I can work on doing as a student, as a woman, as a daughter, just period in life, is being better and good to myself. And I also like how you said, know yourself and your boundaries. I think that is also something very good that you said. You always speak the truth though, so we appreciate it.
I try. And I forgot to say something that I just take for granted among most, well, not most, Black people. You know, you got to have a belief system. See, I know God has been good to me. I know that. And I'll tell anybody, he's overlooked my faults and my weaknesses, but he has sustained Alice Hines. And I know it. It's not about me. It's all about how good he's been. But thank you very much. And anybody else who wants to say whatever, to me. Maybe I didn't touch on what you thought I should have. So you can tell me that too. Anybody? I don't know what to do next. So somebody has to tell me.
Oh, okay, it's all right. I was just giving you your time to talk now. The next part is on me. So
Okay.
everybody, I want y'all to take a moment to tune into this wonderful thing that is about to happen. So I'm actually about to sing. So y'all, if I crack, don't laugh at me, all right, y'all. All right. So I just want to dedicate this song to you to say thank you for all that you have done over the past years, while you were at Hendrix and even after. I am just a junior this year, and over the past 3 years, I've been having the opportunity to just speak with you every now and then when I'm on campus, and it's always just been amazing to be in your presence because you are full of wisdom, and it just brings me joy to talk to you. You're very funny to me also. But I'm just gonna sing the song. It's called Give Me My Flowers, because we would like to just give you your flowers while you live today. So here we go. Give me my flowers while I yet live, so that I can see the beauty that they bring. Oh, give me my flowers.
Oh my goodness.
While
I love you.
yet live, so that I can see the beauty that they bring. Speak kind words to me while I hear them,
Beautiful.
so that I can hear the beauty that they bring. I'm gonna sing it one more time.
Go ahead. It's beautiful.
Give me my flowers while I yet live, so that I can see the beauty that they bring. Thank you, Dr. Hines, for all
Oh,
that
thank
do.
you. That is so beautiful. And I agree with you because I told them, listen, when I die, don't have any folks up there making remarks. If they want to say something to me, they should have said it while I was living so I could hear. I'm dead. I can't hear what you're saying.
That's right,
Makes
Dr.
no
Hines. But we
sense.
just wanted to make sure we did that on today.
Well, that is beautiful. I got them. Thank you.
Well, please give her another hug for me, please. 'Cause
Well, thank you all very much for even putting up with me, because I used to tell the students that because they knew where I was. And I didn't change. As I said to Mr. John Churchill, who hired me, I said, I have two interests and they'll stay the same. And they were women and Black people. And they didn't change for my 36 years. Those were my interests, and I left here with the same ones. Thank you very much. That was so beautiful.
You are so welcome. Again, I just want to say thank you to everyone who was involved with this.
Yes.
I want to say thank you to everybody who attended this annual summit. I am grateful to again have the opportunity to MC. I think it's gonna get better every single year. And we really, really hope to see you guys in person next
Yes.
year. I would also like to thank Arkansas State for the platform, to host this.
Yeah.
I would like to personally thank the Office for Diversity Inclusion, and also the alum, Mr. Dr. Harville Howard, for this as well. And thank you to just everybody here, because I don't want to just, skip over anybody. But thank y'all. And that's
Well,
all I
thank
have for today.
you. It was
If Ms. Keisha
beautiful.
or Dr. Harvell wants to hop in, you guys can.
Dr. Harvell, where are you? I don't know.
I think Miss Dea still did a phenomenal job. So everyone give her a salute, a round of applause for doing
Yes.
such a great job. Of course, I appreciate the thanks, but everything goes to, and I'm not putting my video up. I'm having a bad hair day, Dr. Hines.
Me too.
So, but all the thanks goes to the advisory team. They're listed in the program. I wouldn't want to try to recall them all right now, but just want to salute them and all the school partners around the state that actually make this happen. I just happen to be fortunate enough to be the individual that call them, but when I call, they all accept and do their part. So it's just so many great institutions that are listed, our sponsors that have been a part of it. They're all listed on the program, and I sent an updated program to everyone's email that include everybody that's been a part of this work. And as you all know, to get anything great done, it takes an entire team to do it. And and for Arkansas to be great, it takes all of these institutions and individuals that are leaders in these institutions, but all the students actually that's participating and everybody on the program that did such a wonderful job. So I just want to thank everyone for what they did. And I don't have anything else, but I just want to give everybody, as you say, Dr. Hines, their flowers while they're here, because this wouldn't have been able to be done had it not been for all the great people that are listed, and even some that are not. There are a lot of unsung heroes. Mr. Bumper, I want to give him a shout out there at ASU for definitely keeping us going with technology, and the whole team there for what they did. Thanks so much. Dave, you can close us out.
I'm not gonna touch anything in case I mess it up. I'm just gonna sit here until somebody comes and will undo whatever this is. But take care of yourselves. I hope to see you next year.
Hey, well, I think that's a great closing, Dr. Hines. I would like to say again, thank everybody. Thank y'all for having me. It's been a great summit. I just really pray that we can be in person next year. We're gonna pray hard about that, but that's all I have.
All right, you did a beautiful job.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you did. It's great.